bombs all over the place. Welcome back to Arcade. I am Super Tommy, and this is part 2 of our bomb attack series. Now, in the first part, we created a component that we added to our character here, move around, and it basically puts a bomb wherever the selector square is, and then we do a countdown, and you see here it says countdown finished. Now, in this part, we're going to finish this up by adding an explosion so that we add some colliders when this bomb explodes after that countdown is finished, and we'll just take out these pots with our explosion. Now, before we continue, be sure to subscribe to this channel, the Arcade YouTube channel, for more videos on game development on the web. Now, and if you like this series, be sure to hit like on this video as well. Alright, so let's get started here. I'm going to make myself smaller. Let's go over here. So we wrapped up here with this countdown finish. So what we're going to want to do is be able to emit an event so that other people who are other code, other components perhaps, that care about a component or this countdown finishing can do something about it. So let's do that with the event emitter. So we're going to use Phaser's event emitter for this. Let's go private events. We're going to add this events property. We'll do new phaser.events.event emitter. It gives us a new event emitter, and what we can do is here do this.events.emit. Let's just say finished. That. And then we'll add let's put it after init, we'll add an onFinished. OnFinish, we'll take a callback, which let's say takes no parameters, returns nothing. We'll take a context optionally, it'll be any. And then what we'll do is this.events.on. We call it finished, right? So this is the name of the event, which is the same as what we have here in emit. We're going to give it the callback, and we'll give it any context if passed in. And then we're going to return a function to dispose this listener. So this.events.off finished callback context. Now we could add this finish as a constant in this class, so that we have to type it out 3 different times. But I'll just leave it like this in this example. So now we have this on finished, which we'll use to do the explosion. Now to do the explosion, we're going to need to make some colliders. So let's go out to our bomb attack scene. Right, we have our pots, we have our player, and we're adding our BombSpawner component to our player. But so that we can have collision, we're going to make a group of colliders. So that we can place multiple bombs. Now, having only one collider is only going to work if you're only ever going to put down one bomb at a time. So if it takes 3 seconds for a bomb to go off, I can go like bomb here, and they should both go off, within a second of each other, or however long it was that took me to place those 2 bombs. So basically, since multiple bombs can exist and can explode at the same time, or roughly the same time within that 3-second duration and within the explosion time, we're going to need multiple colliders. Now, the easiest way to do that is to make a group of game objects that have colliders on them. So let's do that here. We're going to call these bomb colliders, and we're going to add a physics group. And we're going to give it a type, so it's class type, and we're going to say it's phaser.gameObjects.container in our example here at least. If you're in your game, you'll probably have some sort of animation for this explosion, and then in which case you can use phaser.physics.arcade.sprite, which may be actually the default, and if it's a sprite and you'll animate, then it'll be a certain size. We're going to use this container and just specify a circle collider. Okay, so we have our bomb colliders, and we're going to want to pass this collider down to 2 different components that we're going to make here. An explosion component, and then a explosion damage or damage by explosion component. since our pots are going to be damageable by explosions, we're going to attach that to the pots, and then our bomb itself is going to have a collider, or a explosion component that will have a collider. So let's start first with a let's say explosion component. So we'll go to our components folder here. Let's call it explosion. And we'll do import phaser. We'll probably need it. Export default class explosion, and we're going to implement the I component like we've been doing in the last video for our countdown component and our BombSpawner component. Let's go here. We'll take GameObject phaser.GameObjects.GameObject. Let's see, private GameObject.GameObject. Okay, so that's the setup. Now here what we want to do is move a collider into place when this explosion happens. Now this explosion is going to happen when that countdown reaches 0. So first thing, in our constructor, we actually want to take a bunch of colliders. And so this is going to be a group, so phaser dot, I'm going to say physics group. Okay, and then so let's store that. Private read only, let's call it colliders. It'll be a group. So this dot colliders. So now that we have that, when the countdown explodes, so let's do and start, we're going to need a reference to our countdown component. Now we've done that in the past. In the last video, we showed you how to use the component service, find components. So we're going to do something similar here. So let's take components. So this is an optional second parameter that is passed into init. I component service. So private components, I component service. Okay. So when we're here, we're going to want to look for the countdown component on the bomb. So this explosion component will be placed on the bomb as well, just like our countdown component. So we also want a reference to that. So let's see, private countdown. Actually, we don't need to reference that. Let's just store it locally in the start. So countdown, this dot components dot find component on our game object, and we want countdown. Now, if not countdown, we're going to do nothing in this case, since we need that to exist. And then so countdown dot on finished, and let's say we're going to say handle explosion. Handle explosion. We'll do this dot handle explosion. Context is this. Now this does, if you recall, we return a cleanup, a unsubscribe function. So let's just get that private, let's say unsub, and it's going to be optional, or it may be undefined, and it's just going to be an empty function, or a function with no parameters. So this dot unsub, and we want that so that when we do destroy here, we can clean up after ourselves. Just call it. Then we can actually do this. This? Yeah. So this is just, if it exists, call it. We can also do this. If this dot unsub would be, these two would be identical, or equivalent, not identical. But we're just going to go with this type script syntax instead. And of course we want to do the same thing the second the explosion actually happens. And so now here is where we're going to get a collider from our colliders group. So this dot colliders dot get. Now we want to put it where the bomb is. So where the bomb is where our game object XY is. Now our game object is going to be missing the XY. If you recall, in part 1 we had to add that transform component to this type because the the game object that we're getting, either image, sprite, arcade, image, they're all going to have wrong place. They're all going to have XY or the transform components. So let's just get that here, transform, and we'll put that in here. Brilliant. Now that means, so we're just telling TypeScript, yeah, trust me, this is the type we're expecting, this is the type we're going to get, then they will have X and Y in it. Okay, so there's X, Y, so we do X, we do Y, and that's it. So we get our colliders there, that should happen, and then after some time, we want to remove this collider, or like return it back to the pool here, to this group. So this is our explosion. So what happens, once the countdown finishes, we want to get the explosion collider in place, then we want to wait some time, and then get rid of it. So there's two ways of this. You can add a state machine to this class. That's one way of doing it, right? And then in the state update, accumulate time like we did for the countdown. But we can also use phasers built in the late call. So we'll just get the scene.time. That the late call, we'll use the late call here, and let's just say in half a second, we are going to clean up this collider. We get that collider dot, let's see, colliders dot get. Let me just double check what we are expecting there. So we want to clean that up. Okay, so we can do scene.physics.world.disable the body first, actually. So we no longer want the body to have effect in the world. So collider.body. So now this is, how can I type this? Let me just double check how I typed the, okay, so let's just say this, what we're gonna get, it's not just a group, but we know it's going to be a container. Container with a physics body, right. So for simplicity here, we're gonna use this type, since it is mostly correct. It's not an image, of course, we're not actually having an image, we're having a container, but image, container, they have everything is mostly the same except for having an actual texture to render. So we're going to use this just to save us some time instead of constructing the exact right type. So collider will have a body, we're going to disable that body when the time is up, that half second, 500 milliseconds. And then that's good. And now we want to, of course, just destroy this game object itself, right? So the bomb needs to go away after this point. So we do this.gameObject.destroy, which should clean up all of our components, but we can also do this.components.remove all components for the game object. And that should get off everything. You can also remove this component if you wanted, but this will, of course, just do that as well, like we did in countdown here, if you recall, right here, to clean up the component itself. In our case here, in this explosion, it cleans up everything. This actually may be redundant because destroy should then go through all the destroys for that game object and like remove all the components from it anyway. Actually, maybe it doesn't remove them all. So want to make sure we clean up, we just call it here for safety. But it will call destroy on all the components when you do gameObject.destroy. Is that true? Oh no, it won't. So yeah, you have to clean up all your components and then destroy your game object. Okay. So we have that. So actually we also want to enable, I think. If we're disabling there, we also want to enable body. Collider.body. No, enable body, collider.body. No, that's the object. Let's see. body, it takes an object, which is the game object, body type. Let's see, what is it? Complaining argument. No, sorry, not body. This only wants the actual game object. Yep, okay. Alright, this I think looks good. We should just try it and see what happens. Okay, bomb attack scene. Good here. So when we make a bomb, we need to give it the colliders. So let's do, so our bomb spawner can take, as well as the cursors, colliders. So that's phaser.physics.arcade.group. And we'll just store that. Phaser.physics.arcade.group. This.colliders. Colliders. And then when we make our bomb, which is over here, and we add our countdown component, then we're going to add our new explosion component, and we want to give it some colliders, right? Property space of undefined. Let's see, BombSpawner 55. No, because I haven't. Stat colliders. Oh no, bomb colliders. Okay. Okay, so I have the colliders. This is not going to quite. Well, let's see what this does. I think we're still missing. We got to like specify the shape of our collision. Let's see what this does. Right. So it happened, but it was a square, and it happened at like there, but we want to like shift it. So okay, to do that, to make our collider shape, let's say, it's on create. Let's double check my notes here. I guess bomb colliders dot create callback. Let's just say that. So here we're going to get the game object that we're creating, which is going to be of type container. So it's going to have an X and a Y and a body. So what we're going to do here is item, let's just call it game object. Game object dot body. And we know that it's phaser.physics.arcade.body, since it could be multiple types, right? It could be either or, but we know exactly what body we have here, since we're making a normal arcade physics body group. So let's use that, and in the body we can set it as circle. So body dot set circle. Oops. Bdoy body. Body dot set circle, and let's just say, I don't know, 64 radius. So there's an offset here. We can offset, I think, by the radius. Then physics, we're just going to disable the body because we're enabling it when we start. Body. We want to enable it when we start, simply because since this is a pool, the groups are effectively pools. Each time you use one and you return it back, you got to disable the body. So when you pick out a new one, it could be a reused one or an actual new one created here, but you don't really know. So just to make everything the same, you disable it to start. All right, so now let's see what we get here. Let's drop this bomb. All right, see, I didn't actually have to move, but it's like a reflex, drop a bomb, you want to move away from it. This bomb doesn't actually hurt our character, and we're not going to go over that in this video, but you can just simply add the colliders, and given how we do the pots, you can figure that out for the character. Okay, so now we got this thing, so let's just do a couple of these. Okay, they're too slow. Okay, let's do it faster, so that you see that it is worth having the colliders group. Right, so the colliders can happen next to each other, it overlaps each other. You just want multiple colliders in case you have multiple bombs and they all go off at the same time. So that in this case, it wouldn't be the case where it starts here and a bomb goes off here at about the same time. It would just simply move. If you only had one collider, it would just move that one, and explosions here would stop if someone walked into it. Right, so that's what we have, a group of colliders, and we're going to just create as many colliders as we want dynamically, depending on how many bombs are on screen going off at the same time. Okay, so now we need to make the pots actually get destroyed by these colliders. So we're gonna make a explosion damage by explosion. What sounds better to you? I'm gonna go explosion damage TS. That's gonna be the component. Now we could just, given that our pots are a group, but this is a dummy thing, right? This is not necessarily how your game's going to be, so we're doing it this way. We could just add a collider for the two groups and it'll just work, but it's very likely in your case that you may be making these objects not from groups and just from sprites or images or whatnot. So we're just going to assume that these pots are not groups, even though it is currently a group, for this demo at least. So let's make this component like we've done before. Explosion damage implements I component. Okay, make this relatively important in case you don't have the tilde alias. Go phaser.gameObjects.gameObject. Private gameObject. Phaser.gameObjects.gameObject. This.gameObject go. Okay. Now let's think. So explosion damage means when we get a collision, we need to destroy the game object that we're on, or like decrement health. In this case, we're just gonna get rid of it entirely. So let's go to start on this component. Start. We want to, well, number one, we need the actual collider constructor. Colliders will be phaser.physics.arcade.group. Private colliders .physics.arcade.group. This.colliders. Now on start we want to do this dot, nope, we want to do, gotta get the scene from our game object, and then scene.physics.colliders add.collider. We want to add this game object against all the colliders. Then we want to do something when that happens. So this is the collide callback. Actually, we don't need to collide. We just need an overlap. As long as it's overlapping, something's happening. So let's double check that. Okay, collide callback. Right, there's no process callback. Okay. So let's say this handle damage undefined, and what is this? So let's make a method here called handle damage. Now it will pass us the collider that overlapped with this game object and this game object, but we don't really need to know that. We already know this information, and we don't care which collider overlapped with us in this case. So we are going to clean up our components like we did in the bomb remove, in the explosion for the bomb. My component service, so let's get our components. Component service. Is that components. So first thing we do, we want to make sure when this pot is exploded on or destroyed, we want to remove all the components from it, and then we want to do destroy to remove the pot itself. And I think that should be it. Let's give it a go. Bomb attack scene pot. So let's see in our create here const pot, and this dot components dot add component on each pot a new explosion damage component which takes our bomb colliders. Put a bomb there. It should take out at least one pot. And there we go. Check out the 2 pots that are within the radius of that bomb. Now you see that it started off here. I think you can see. So like the collider shows up here first in the debug, but that's actually just a visual thing. If we put a pot here, let's say dummies dot create, and I think width times 0.7, height times 0.7, let's say, pot. Just to make sure we add that to this pot too. We're going to make another pot just somewhere over here. And you'll see that I'm going to put this thing here. See if that shows up. Right, it does not actually take out this pot because it's just like a rendering thing on Phasr's debug drawing, I guess. So even though it looks like for a split second that debug was there, the collider is in fact over here, and it took out the proper pots that you would expect. So last thing, you see this bomb is on top of our character, which is no good. There's more sophisticated ways to solve this, but at least in this specific demo, in almost all cases, depending on how your bombs are, if they're small enough, you'll probably always want the bombs to be under your character, and you can do that with a layer. So bombs layer, this is something I believe newly added in Phaser 3.50 and higher. So dot layer, and we're just gonna add that layer, call it the bombs layer, and every bomb that we make, we just want to put it on that layer. And so we make bombs in the BombSpawner. So we can pass, we'll just say we pass a bomb layer, bombs layer there, and then in our BombSpawner component here, we're going to take a layer, phaser dot game objects dot layer. Kind of want to actually take it last. Constructor. Let's go with that layer, and then it could be optional. Let's say we don't actually have to have it. Private read-only layer. Phaser dot game objects dot layer. This dot layer layer. And so what we want to do here is, if the layer exists, basically add our bomb to that layer. So in handle spawn bomb here, you go if this dot layer, we just want to do this dot layer dot add bomb. And let's go back to our bomb scene. We want to do this as the last parameter, and it's optional. All right, so let's put our bomb. Oops. And it is of course now under the character as expected. Bombs all over the place. All right, just try that again. All right, and there we go. So that is bomb attack in Phaser 3.55. But I think almost everything in this series works for any version of 3.50 or higher. Now, so we use our components. We created the explosion damage component in this video for each pot or whatever object you want to respond to explosions. We made a collider group so that we can have as many bombs going off as we want, and they'll all affect things during that time that the explosion is active, and we made it 500 milliseconds. That is in our explosion component, which is added to each bomb we make. That then listens to the countdown component when it counts down from 3, 2, 1, 0, and then the explosion goes off. When that happens, we move our collider into place here. We grab one from the colliders group, move it into place, and then in 500 milliseconds with this delayed call, we then remove the collider, put it back into the group, remove all our components from the bomb, and then destroy the bomb itself. So that's our bomb attack 2-part series. If you enjoyed this video, do hit like, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos on game development for the web.